today we're gonna be talking about the do's and the don'ts in the barber industry. We're gonna be talking about a little bit of how we started as a barber. So, Joey, can you tell me a little bit how you started in this beautiful game of barbering?
So just a little background about me. I started barbering about 4 or 5 years ago. It was coming right off of COVID. I used to do truck driving, warehouse jobs, and at the time I wasn't cutting it. Uh, so at the time I was going to the barber shop every week. I was getting my hair cut from a shop in Linwood called Global Cuts Barbershop. And my barber used to be Global Cuts, and he used to be really good. I used to see him booked up all the time. And one time I just asked him, I was like, hey, like, what do I need to do to get into barbering? Because I see he was having clients and having a lot of clients throughout the day. I would hang out and I would see the clients coming in and coming from a business background. I was like, like doing the numbers in my head. I was like, I want what he has. So I asked him like, what's the first step I need to do? And he said, hey, you gotta go to barber school, get your license, and that's the first step into the door. So next thing you know, I signed up for barber school during COVID. So during that time, it was a little hectic because there was a waiting period. It wasn't just a quick sign up. We had to wait a couple months. And at the same time, I was getting a little impatient. I also signed up to be a CHP officer, and at the time
Damn.
I was gonna go. Um, Crazy story, because when I was on my way to go to take the CHP test, it's the same day the barber school called me and they told me, "Hey, we got one more spot open, but you got to sign up today." So I was on my way driving to Glendale to take the CHP test, and I made a quick decision, literally 20 minutes, and I was like, you know what? Got off the freeway, went all the way back to Riverside, and never looked back. That
Man,
was my
that was
intro.
the best decision in your life, and then now
Yeah.
today it's like you're enjoying, that little decision that you took. Man, that's an interesting story, Joey. And there's something that pretty sure you alongside, in the barber industry so far. You've been how long have you been a barber for?
4 or 5 years. So I started barber school in 20 at the end of 2020, and graduated, I would believe, 2021. Yeah, so been cutting for 4 years with the license, but I haven't been in the game for that long. But I've just been around great mentors, great people that have a lot of experience. That I've just been like a sponge. I've asked questions, I shadowed, and I just trying to learn as much as possible.
Yeah, and one thing that I had worked with you alongside during those 5 years, and it's one thing that I can say that during those 5 years you have the experience of somebody that's been cutting for more than 10 years plus. So, I mean, what can you tell the barbers out there? Something that what's a thing that you must do in the barber game in order to the biggest question I think for every barber is what could I do to get more clientele? What could I do to make more money?
Hmm.
What could I do to start one day be able to open a shop, which today, we're gonna be talking,
Yeah.
down in the video, we're gonna be talking about, we're literally here on the Fade Lab. So what can you tell the barbers out there?
First thing I could tell, well, I was teaching at a barber school, and one thing I always tell every new barber that comes in is there's three things you got to do when you enter the game. One, you got to find a mentor, someone that's going to inspire you, someone that you could, look to whenever you're getting confused. You can ask them questions. So if you don't have a mentor, I suggest you start finding one. Go shadow someone at a shop. Go shadow one that's going to get you introduced into the game, and someone you can kind of base your route in the beginning and kind of piggyback off of what they've done. Two, you got to find a good environment, someone that friends and or other barbers that kind of got the same goals, visions,
Really
because
important.
the environment I would say is the most important thing because you're only limited as the people around you. If no one's thinking about ownership, no one's thinking about expanding outside the chair, and they're not thinking of what they could do outside of barbering, then you're only going to be limited to just working at the shop.
Mm.
And three, you got to track everything. I said when I was at barber school, I mean I would track everything. I would write down the goals. I would write down my plan. I'll start writing everything down and getting prepared as if you're already a barber. Because if you're in barber school and you're doing your hours, I believe now is 1,000 hours. You get to just take a test. You don't have to do a practical. But if you're in the beginning, 200, 300 hours, start writing down your plan as you're a barber already and what you're going to be doing at the shop. If you do those three things, I guarantee you, by the time you graduate, you get your license. It's not going to take you very long to get clientele. It's just a matter of consistency and being intentional with everything you do.
Hey man, and those
Yeah.
are some powerful gems that I think that every barber should do. And I seen it. I'm being a witness, not just because you're my friend in the barber game, my brother in Christ. I seen how far, like actually, if you're a barber, tracking your numbers, tracking your
Hmm.
cuts is eventually gonna get you. It's gonna even motivate you to start doing that.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful journey that you have been so far now, Joey. And for the ones who are listening to me, well, I'm gonna share now. How I we actually got to meet Joey. So look, I've been cutting hair for 17 years now. I started back in 2007, but officially started cutting in '09. So 2007, I started cutting hair. At first, I was working at a shop in East LA. I remember, I only had enough, money to put gas to make it to the shop. Man, I had a little Honda Civic, a little EF for the ones who know about Civics. So I used to pump like $3, but that was enough for me to make it to learn how to cut hair.
Hmm.
So I was cutting with this guy named Ramon. He's from Michoacan. He was pretty known at back in the day. When fades used to be done with the razors, and everything was
The old school
like
right
the
there.
old school method. So I started going with them. I was literally, for the barbers out there. Hopefully, this could kind of motivate you. I started making $40 a week, bro. I was making forty
Sheesh.
bucks a week back in the day. Haircuts were like $7, and then went up to 8. And the passion continued with me. Where actually, I loved it. I love cutting hair. I didn't care if I was getting paid or not. I was just focused on what I wanted in life. And one thing that actually, this guy always showed me that it was tracking your numbers, be polite to clients. Every walk-in that
Hmm.
comes in, the goal should be to take them in, give
Yeah.
them the service. And then from there I started kind of learning a little bit more. He showed me good habits, which is the key to become a good barber. Good habits.
Hmm.
I always say this, and don't misinterpret what I'm trying to say. For the ones that
Yeah.
are listening to me, it's not about maybe the way you look or the way you dress. It's basically the quality you give us a haircut as a barber. People will come back and remember of the way you are with the person. So
That's very
after,
powerful what you said.
yeah,
Don't skip over that because, like we always mention, me and Victor always talk about is that you could probably be a C plus, B plus haircutting barber, but if your customer service is A1 and you know how to retain clients, and you know how to welcome them every time, and you know how to make that family environment, they're always gonna come back. They're always gonna support you, and they're gonna see your growth. And that's the thing. That's the new barbers. They get a little intimidated that I don't think I'm ready for a shop. Oh, I don't think if the people are gonna like my haircuts. If you're not that good at cutting hair, be a strong customer service person because
yeah,
that's definitely gonna save you a
yeah.
lot of headaches.
Definitely. So,
Yeah.
that's how I started gaining a little more clientele. So, then I started coming to a shop here in Bell. Shout out to my boy Frank's Barbershop.
Frank's
He's in
Barber
Bell.
Shop. Yep.
So he at the time back in 2010, he used to work at a shop called Magdalenos. For the people that have been here in Bell for a long
Mm-hmm.
time, you guys will know where the barbershop was at. So he started cutting my hair at that time, and I would
Mm-hmm.
ask him, "Hey man, what could I do to get more into the barber game and everything?" He would just tell me,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, go get your license. Go get your license." He was a really good motivation to me as a barber. He inspired me a lot too. And then there was another shop that was here for a long time and it's been here for a long time. It was called Charlie's Chop Shop. So shout out to Charlie, man.
Shout
I
out to Charlie.
I blessed his life just because the fact he gave me that chance back when Charlie's Chop Shop, was really
Mm-hmm.
booming at the time back in
Yeah.
2010, 11,
Mm-hmm.
12. So he took the risk to take me in.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, bro, there was everybody used to get down to the barbershop, bro. I know my boy's gonna watch this video. Joe, so Joe, everybody, shout out to my boy Joe out there.
Shout
So
out.
Joe was one of the great barbers there. So there was one named Ray, little Ray, man. He was a great barber, bro. And at
Mm-hmm.
the time, I was one of the barbers. So just picture this: the whole shop was booked, and I was one of the ones that were like nobody wanted to go in with me, though.
You're the
So
rookie.
if you're starting and you're going through that, hey, that's part of the process. Don't worry
Mm-hmm.
about it. Eventually you're gonna get clientele. But you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I was humble enough to kind of learn from others. Ask
Mm-hmm.
questions, and I think that's another key. When you ask questions, when they, somebody that been cutting for a long time and they get down with the fades and
Yeah.
everything. Take everything they have, and I started learning from them. I started learning from Ray.
Mm-hmm.
This barber Ray, that was there. He started teaching me, man, and everything. But at the time, I
Mm-hmm.
started, building my clientele, and the thing was, one thing that I always learned from Charlie is to be there on time, be there all day.
Mm-hmm.
So if the shop opened at 9, I had to be there from 9 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
That was my boss right there.
Yeah.
And that was the hours were like the boss to me. That was the company. If you just picture
Yeah.
that, that was your company. Stay there.
Mhm.
So I would stay there all day for one client, one client, one client.
Mhm.
Eventually, it became so many clients because the clients always saw me cutting here and there.
Consistency. Yeah.
So back at the time, like you said too, we have a crazy testimony because I was going to college. I actually went to college. So if you guys, I actually did went to college, but I was going. My majors was to be a pharmacist.
Oh
So
yeah.
way different from what I wanted though.
That's
But
crazy.
so that's where the name D element came
Came
from, and
from
it
yeah.
sounds funny though, right? So and so from there, I started cutting hair. The passion was there all the time. I was cutting. My parents were really supportive to me,
Yeah.
when it came to barbering. Back at the time, it wasn't a cool thing to become a barber, bro.
Yeah.
They look
Back
at
time
you,
it was
yeah,
back
they
then. I
look at
remember
you
going to
weird,
haircuts for
like,
like $7,
yeah,
$10.
$7,
Yeah,
$8. What
this.
is he gonna make of anything? But there was one thing. There was the passion. There was the direction. And above all things, bro, is that I always had faith in God. I'm
Mhm.
a really spiritual man. Like I always said,
Yeah.
I'm not religious, but I do have a relationship with God.
Mhm.
My faith is really based on God, and at the end of the day, He opened the doors, bro. And
Mhm.
today,
And I think God, that's a big topic right there because a lot of
yeah,
people, me and Victor, I think that's the reason why we work well as a partnership. It's just that we both have our faith. I remember when I met him, I wasn't into church. I wasn't doing anything God related, and I wasn't, putting God first in anything. And he saw me work like a dog, morning to night, morning to night. He saw me get wear out. He saw my highs and he saw my lows. And the moment where everything started to shift mentally, when he kept preaching to me, he's like, you got to go to church, you got to put God first, you got to have faith and everything. And there was times that I'll be honest that I didn't want to do barbering no more. There's times where I wanted to quit. There was times where I was like, you know what, I'm just worn out. But when I started going to church and everything, I just started seeing everything align, doors opening, opportunities opening, and that's where I really locked in with Victor. And I told him, you know what, Vic, like if we're gonna do this, God's got to be in the middle of everything, and that's the way we're gonna do business. And that's kind of how everything's starting opening up, and we never look back from that. I always tell him like it's never what happened in the past; it's always what's in the future. And we put God first. And He's gonna align everything as it should be.
definitely, definitely.
So.
And I want to add a little bit more to what you
Mhm.
said, Joey, because there's a lot of people out there that are scared to partner up. They,
Mhm.
they always get those comments, hey, but what if, he's going to do you bad,
Dirty.
he's going to
Mhm.
take advantage of it. One thing
Mhm.
that we have different between in common is that we have God in the middle.
Mhm.
So my fear is not maybe to do you dirty, but it's like if I do you dirty,
Yeah.
I know God's going to take care of that. So
Mhm.
I don't want to,
Yeah. There's
get
a certain
involved.
fear of God
There's a certain
that
fear of God,
we
yeah.
don't want to mess with each other. I don't want to do him dirty. And Victor, I see him like a brother
Yeah,
because he
likewise.
brought me to Christ. He's one of the guys that planted that main seed. And I told him because when I got baptized, I told him, hey Vic, like I treasure this friendship because it's worth more than a lot. You really showed you're really there for me. You're helping me in my walk with the Lord. And I told him, like, like as long as we keep that respect and that foundation of God, I want to see you grow. I know you
Yeah,
want to see me grow, and
definitely.
I want to see his family prosper. I want to see him blessed. Because at the end of the day, if we're having a blessed environment and if we want to see each other grow, there's no envy, there's no jealousy. Uh, we're both only going to prosper.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely, like you said, it's a commitment, bro. Because
Mhm.
I see a lot of people saying, you know what, like, I believe I have my faith in God, this and
Mhm.
that, like, and that's all cool by all
Yeah.
means. But you gotta sacrifice at least a certain thing in order for you to have that change. Even in the
Yeah.
barber game, like, how is it that God is involved in the barber game? For example, as a business people, you want that right guidance. You
Yeah.
want that right environment in the shop.
Mhm.
You're in the right environment. You want to bring your family. You want to bring people, and that's going to bring a lot of people because people are going to listen to something positive. When
Yeah.
you come to the shop. So that's what we're doing something different here at the Fay Lab, bro. And the one thing to do is I always tell people, be disciplined in what you do. Have
Mhm.
discipline, have the to
Habits.
come. Keep good habits. Don't go along with the trend. Be
Mhm.
yourself. Be different.
That's perfect what you said right there. Don't follow the trend. Um, I would just go a little bit off of that is the do's and the don'ts, and that's one of the things is learn to be okay with where you are in your path. I think today nowadays everyone wants to be an influencer. Everyone thinks they're a
Hmm.
celebrity barber, but if you look at down to the day, we're all stewards of something.
Yeah.
Some guys might be blessed with a lot of influence in the barber game, a lot of clients, a lot of videos go viral. But then you got a new barber that maybe his skills is not up to that level, but wants to get to that level. But it's just a matter of knowing where you are in your path. But the main thing should be, if you apply good principles, good habits, you should at least be making enough income to provide for yourself, for your family. And I think at the end of the day, that if you take care of your house first, your family, your kids, your foundation, everything else is gonna align.
Yeah,
But if you're
yeah.
putting vanity, you're chasing money, you're chasing the fame, you're chasing the clout first over your foundation.
You're setting yourself a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. And discipline is the key. Before
Mm-hmm.
we opened the Fade Lab, we were at Frank's Barbershop for a year here in Bow. And one
Mm-hmm.
thing that we learned, and that's what kind of led us to, knowing that if you have good values, good
Yeah.
discipline, and everything, that's something that Frank, has, good
Yeah.
discipline. He's a real businessman.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the thing that it
Inspired,
inspired
yeah.
us to, hey, we can do it. We have discipline.
Mm-hmm.
We have the good environment. So,
And it's
hey,
not as hard as you guys think,
yeah,
like going into this process of opening up our own barbershop. Uh, Frank always had this quote. He always says, "Just one haircut at a time,"
yep,
and that's
yep,
something that me and Victor are inspired. We take it to heart,
yeah,
and it was a good place to be us for us to grow, because it gave us that motivation. Like, hey, if we just take it one cut at a time, I know we're moving forward.
yep,
And luckily we've learned those habits right there at that shop, and I got inspired. Like you said, Victor said that it inspired us to open up the Fade Lab Barbershop.
yeah,
And we're seeing the process right now. We're still building it. We're still barely open. We're still going through the whole transition.
mm-hmm,
So it's surreal to see how in a year so much things change,
yep,
and the power of God to just accelerate things when you have just full faith, obedience, prayer. There's a lot of things that goes into it.
yeah.
It's not just one thing. This is like a whole lot.
Yeah, definitely,
Mhm.
and that's something that people are gonna, notice. Is
Mhm.
we're a different barbershop,
Mhm.
and we're not like obviously gonna try to, shove you in, to believe in something. No, it's just to show you that, the power of God. At the end of the day, like if you,
Mhm.
believe in it, you
Yep.
see the fruits. And
Mhm.
now another thing that I could always tell to a new barber out there, always keep learning. Always keep
Yep.
learning. I'm been cutting for 17 years, but I'm still learning from other barbers. Even from the new one to the old one, I'm still learning something new. So always keep learning. Always don't be humble enough to say, what, I'm still learning.
But also have confidence in yourself. If you're a new barber, if you know you're putting in the work, you're shadowing, you're being a student of the game, have confidence in yourself.
Yeah,
That's one thing. Because if you go into a barbershop with, like me, I went out the barbershops that I've been at, everyone's been 13, 14, 15, 20 years cutting experience. I've been the least experienced in all the barbershops I've been at, but I always was what I lacked in skill and years of experience. I made up for in my work ethic.
yeah,
Victor would tell you, I used
yeah.
to be first one in, last one out. I would shadow, and I feel that when you have good habits, it compensates for the lack of skill.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely, and look how far it's
Hmm.
taking you. Be able to
Yeah.
open the shop now. It's so beautiful. And
Hmm.
another thing that I always say to people is surround yourself with good, positive people all the
Hmm.
time, man.
Yep.
You have good, positive people. You have, like Joey said, you have the same vision. You guys are gonna be able to accomplish that because you guys keep accountability, and that's something that
Hmm.
a lot of people don't like.
Accountability.
It's the
Yep.
accountability.
Yeah.
That you want to make it far in life and make sure somebody's accountable for you and keeps you on track, and that's gonna lead you to better. If it leads you
Hmm.
to best, keep doing it.
Yeah, that's one thing my pastor always says, that you are who you hang around with. Who are your five closest friends? That if you see your friends, you're gonna be
Yeah,
mimicking, or you're gonna be exactly like them. So be very conscious of who you have around you.
yeah,
If you know that they drink, they do drugs, or they're not keeping the business first, they're not have their priorities straight.
yeah,
Maybe it's time you change your environment. Maybe it's
yeah,
time you change your circle. It's gonna be awkward. It's gonna be confrontational. So you got to be already aware that there's
yeah.
gonna be some confrontations, and you
Yep.
got to be okay to step back and be like, hey, this is not for me. And I need to go over to where it's business, is where God's in the middle, and where I know I'm gonna prosper because I'm having good habits and a good environment around me.
That is so true.
Hmm.
That is so true, and that's the another point that I wanted to say. Take the risk. Take the
Hmm.
risk to find good environment. To always seek the good people that are gonna get you to where you want to be. Like it's like I was saying, if you want to be a businessman, I'm gonna listen to somebody that has done it already and is giving
Yeah.
fruits. So I could tell you so much, but if my fruits are not giving what I'm saying, it's like,
Hmm.
hey, it's just the wind is just taking the words. But
Yeah.
if my fruit is speaking what I'm preaching, then I
Hmm.
have something to back it up.
Yeah. I
And
know.
for the go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say one more thing is just one another thing for new barbers. don't burn bridges. I see this with some of my barber students is that they'll be jumping from shop to shop to shop.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell Victor, I only been at 2 to 3 shops, and I'm thankful for everyone. Thankful for Global. He showed me the skills and
Mm-hmm.
everything, so I'm always gonna give him credit for that. I thank you for Frank for just showing me the business side and how to, seeing what's possible with a barbershop because he's the
Yeah.
owner. He owns a house, and just
Yeah.
seeing that level. I'm
Yeah.
thankful for my where I worked at with the barber school, the Fern, Eminence Barber Academy in
Yeah. Another
Riverside.
another
I
guy.
learned it really expanded my mind to see how much a barber could really take it to the next
Mm-hmm.
level. Because I told Victor, man, he has 2 barber schools. I
Yeah.
see he has his house. I see he's killing it,
Yeah.
and I look at him from inspiration. Like, man, that's what a barber could do.
Yeah.
Could be a real businessman.
And,
So,
and it's crazy because even the day I met him
hmm
once, and then the humbleness that he
hmm
has, and to the point where he's at, it's like that's amazing. To be humble
hmm
and be in the top,
yeah,
that's a gift, you know.
yeah,
And for the don'ts, bro, I would tell you guys, don't let the ego lead you, man.
hmm
Sometimes because the ego, we like you said, we burn
yeah,
bridges.
hmm
Sometimes we think that they're out to get us, and at the end of the day, it's just you and God and your family. Like
yeah,
we're working here to better ourselves. What better to see my brother grow? What better
yeah,
for him to see me grow? At the end of the day, it's like
hmm
we're aiming for the same success. To the same road at the end of the day, though.
yeah.
I don't even want to add something to that.
Another don't is don't wait for someone to tell you what to do. In this barber game, I had to break it down. I had to give you guys the truth. You have to seek help. Don't be a guy that thinks they know everything. They know the perfect steps. They know they have an ego where like, man, no one can teach me something new. No, always be looking to grow. Always learn from another barber. Never have an ego because you never know. You might be surprised who teaches you something. And
Yeah,
one thing I
yeah,
see that the best barbers are the ones that aren't scared to ask for help. They're always learning, and I try to apply it to my career. Victor, I see Victor
yeah.
always ask for help, and it's definitely a growth when you're asking for advice and you're asking to learn. Like you're never gonna be left with no skills after that.
Yeah, that is true. And something that Eric Thomas says, information changes situations.
hmm
So, hey, there it goes. The more
Yeah.
info you have, the better you become. Another thing is that I always say, don't stay comfortable. Don't
hmm
stay comfortable where you're at.
Yep.
Always want to keep growing. Always learn something new. Always,
hmm
throw yourself out there to gain more clientele. Go
Yep.
pass out cars. There's nothing bad with all doing that in order for
hmm
you to gain more clientele.
And, especially for new barbers. If you're a new barber, you just got your license. Take every walk in. Don't be the
Mm-hmm.
barber that be like, man, I'm only taking appointments.
Mm-hmm.
You're because barbering is like a wave. There are gonna be moments where you're high,
Mm-hmm.
you're booked out, and there's moments that you might be low. But a way to be always constant, always constantly growing, always be taking walk-ins. Do
Yeah.
not shy away from walk-ins. I think
Yeah.
this new generation is too heavily relied on Instagram and social media that they avoid the day to day. In any business, if you go to your local market, you go to your local store, business that's done daily is done face to face,
Yeah.
person to person, asking for referrals, asking for anyone that they know. That's the best way to build clientele
Yeah.
fast that I feel, and is actually lasting long.
Yeah, definitely. And you have, like, it's not for you to see, like, people say, oh, you're always booked. No, be that barber that always takes people in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to make you more money at the end and more clientele,
Yeah.
And, another thing that I always another don't is don't ignore your growth. Always be
Mm-hmm.
proud of, how far you got in the game.
Which,
Maybe you're within a year, you see how much growth you have. But how would I not ignore my growth? It's like you said, tracking my numbers, tracking my
Mm-hmm.
cuts, seeing how far I'm making it. So don't ignore that.
Yeah.
Always be proud of yourself.
Yeah, you do have to give. It is the one thing being humble, but also giving yourself credit because if you put in the work, you should, give God first. Obviously, give God first the glory because without Him, we wouldn't be able to do anything. But same thing, just be proud of what you've done. Be proud of the progress you're making. Do not look left and right. Don't compare yourself to the next barber. Remember, everyone's in a different path. Everyone has a different talent. Everyone has natural skill. There's different people that have different things, and you might not like what another barber's doing, but be proud of what you're doing. That's the best. That's probably the best advice I could give you is that just be proud of where you're at because you're gonna grow at your rate.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing is don't let anybody define you.
Mm-hmm.
So you are who you are called to be.
Mm-hmm.
God has given you authority.
Yeah.
God called you to become always, a owner, stewardship. God
Mm-hmm.
called you to be, and conquer,
Yeah.
things and don't let anybody define you for who you are. You're complex. That's one
Hmm.
thing that where you come from, or maybe because you don't have the latest shoes, you don't have the latest gadgets,
Yeah.
chains. Don't let anybody define you. It's your work ethic. Your work, the
Hmm.
way you get down when you cut those fades and
Yeah.
everything. That's gonna define who you really are. People are gonna come. They're not gonna care if you drive the latest car, but if you give a good job, that's what the people are gonna look for you. It's not for how you look or
Hmm.
what you have,
Yep.
Louis and all
Don't
that.
get in. Yeah.
Don't know that has
Yeah.
nothing to do. Come
Don't
on,
get
man.
in debt trying to be flashy.
Yeah,
At the
yeah,
end of the day, is it between you and God? You know how much you have in your bank account.
yeah,
You know how much you have saved. If you're a new barber, you got at least gotta have $1,000
yeah,
saved.
yeah. It's
Starting off the
crazy.
gate. If you don't
Yeah,
have that and you have the latest Gucci or Louis Vuitton,
yeah,
you gotta kind of just start rethinking your group. If everyone's thinking about flashy and no one's thinking about ownership of anything, investments or properties, and then maybe you need to start switching your mindset
yeah,
and get around folks that are talking about that, because you're going to see that at the end of the day, you can have all the material, you can have fancy stuff, but if your bank account says zero, your bank
yeah,
account says overdrawn,
yeah.
man, you're gonna be struggling.
Yeah,
You're gonna be mentally drained.
yeah, that is true. That is
Yeah.
true. And I mean, we know people, clients. They come with the regular white tee,
Mhm.
regular shoes. But once you start talking to them, dude, they own like 7 businesses. They have,
Mhm.
houses, apartments. It's like, man, like that's dope.
Yep.
Driving the latest Range Rovers. I'm like,
Yeah,
hey,
inspiring
that's
right
the
there.
goal. That's the goal, of
Mhm.
course. And I want to give you guys, encourage. You want to, to tell you guys, to every barber out there, let your story, influence other people. Let other people
Yeah.
reflect on your story. Let other people identify for what you go through.
Mhm.
Invite them to follow you. Tell them to
Mhm.
follow you in our IG, to repost you. That's gonna get you.
Yep.
Social media is gonna get you more
Yeah.
clientele.
Yeah, we aren't telling you to stay away from social media. We're telling you that apply it with day-to-day habits.
Yeah,
If you
use
apply
it in the
social media and
business.
you apply
Yeah,
daily habits, treating customer service is all going to work together for you. And, it literally works as one unit. And as Victor was saying, use your testimony. Just
hmm
to give them I had this scripture ready for you guys. It's from Revelations 12:11. And it says, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And to me, I take that to heart because I told Victor, man, this is one of the scriptures that had faith to open up this barbershop, because like he told me, like, we're gonna use this Fade Lab barbershop as a testimony. Yes, we cut hair. Yes, we're a barbershop, but it's gonna be a testimony of God's power.
yeah,
And I think that's the main key that you guys can take away from this. That we're not just barbers; we're men of God, and we want to use this platform to spread the gospel and
yeah,
to spread what God has done for us.
yeah.
Like I said, we're not religious. We're just telling hey, God's done this for me,
You can do it
and
with
there's
you.
just some principles you can apply to that can
Yeah.
apply to you.
Yep, that is so true, and that's powerful, Joey, man. And one thing I want to leave you guys is to remember. Remember where you come from.
Mm-hmm.
Where you come from is your foundation, not your finish line. So
Mm-hmm.
always remember where you come
Amen.
from. Always remember how you started. Never, forget about that, because that's what's gonna keep you moving forward every single day. I always remember myself as the first day that I was making $10 to $40 a week, and that keeps me moving every single day. Never forget where I come from, the people who
Amen.
helped you out,
Mm-hmm.
the people who are inspiration for you. So always stay humble in that
Yeah.
sense. And for the next episode, make sure you guys stay tuned
Yeah.
in, because
Stay
we're gonna be
tuned.
giving more gems. This is just the
Yeah.
intro.
Yeah, this is just introduction. Just to let you guys know, the Fade Lab, what we are, kind of our stories. But during the weeks, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. That way we could kind of have topics ready for you guys.
Yeah,
We have a lot of experience from Victor to me, from teaching to workshops, and
yeah,
so we kind of been blessed to see it all like be revealed to us. So you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask
yeah,
us, and ask us about our process. Because we're going through a process right now of ownership. We're
yeah.
transitioning from being just shop employees to
Mm-hmm.
now owners. So it's
Yeah,
a different transition for us. And I'll be honest, I don't know everything about business. I don't know anything about ownership. So it's literally a walk of faith.
yeah.
And
And one thing, next episode, make sure you guys tune in though, because this podcast we're gonna be as
hmm
blunt as we can, man. We're not
yeah.
gonna come and show you, coach you guys to
Hmm.
tell you how to make 150K within the first year. No, 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 no. We're gonna be straightforward with you guys.
Yeah.
How you maybe say your first 60K or
Hmm.
50K.
Yeah.
We're gonna be so blunt. We're gonna be sharing more gems, our
Yeah.
experiences, our good ones and the bad
Yeah.
ones. So make sure you guys keep tuning in. Make sure
Keep
you guys
tuning in,
keep
guys.
following us. Make sure you tap for that like. Make sure you guys share this video,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Make sure you guys tune in. So peace out, straight up from the Fade Lab here in Bell,
Yep, yep.
California. Shout out to everybody out there. I don't know, you want to leave them a
Um,
greet to everybody that's there?
yeah, everyone watching us, thank you guys. Hope you guys keep supporting us. Uh, I always like to pray out and everything. Just this is a scripture just for you guys to leave off the podcast. You know, as Mark 11:24, and he says that for whatever things we ask for when we pray, if we believe we receive them, then we shall have it. So that's one thing for you guys: have faith, pray, and ask God for help, and He'll definitely align everything in your favor.
Yes, sir. So I don't want to. You wanna end us up with a quick prayer for everybody that's out there, Joey Bear?
Yeah, thank you, Heavenly Father. Just thank you for everyone coming today to join us in our first podcast episode. Just continue to give us wisdom to share knowledge to everyone. We thank you, and we thank you for your grace and your mercy, and just bless everyone and that our listeners that are hearing to just get some word revelation out there that might inspire them, that might give them an idea and an opportunity. And we just thank you, Lord, for allowing us to be in your presence. And we just thank you for everything you're doing for the Fade Lab Barbershop.